Welcome to Powerful Marketer Talks. It's great having everyone around.
Welcome, nice to have you. My name is Laura and I'm here with Nathan. And we are just giving everybody else a couple of minutes to get here. So Nathan, how have you been? How has your week been so far?
Great, very busy, tuned on many different activities with companies from different countries. So awesome. It's been a lot of fun, to be honest. Considering that we are on a lockdown, I think I've been more in contact with people than when we were not on lockdown. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think this lockdown really makes us see new opportunities. And when before we didn't have time to reach out to people because we were just surrounded by our, regular people we usually hang out, then now we can really see that, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. Like I might actually call them or just chat with them. And I think it's very nice. But talking about today's topic, communication, how do you feel about that? I know that this is one of your favorite topics now, but have you always been such a master of communications?
Not really, no. I've been probably one of the most shy and introverted persons that you will find in any time, I would say. When I was growing up, I was super shy and I was terrible at dealing with others. I didn't have these social skills at all, and I didn't feel confident speaking to people my age even. I think I sounded like a 40-year-old since I was like 10 or something.
That's so interesting. Where did you get that idea to sound like 40? Did you
I don't know.
Your parents or?
I think the way I was brought up, I was always surrounded by adults and not playing with kids my age that much. I was one of these guys that you will see on some movies that were doing all these piano lessons and stuff like studying, and you have to be 2 hours on the piano, you have to be 2 hours with that, and super structure. So by the time I was 12 or 13, I had no idea. I honestly sounded like a grown-up person. And now that I'm a grown-up person, I'm 43, I'm trying to not sound like a 43 person.
Now you want to sound young and cool and forever 18.
Exactly. Brian Adams, 18 till I die. That's the vibe. That's the vibe.
That's awesome. But can you share maybe with others as well? How did you become such a good communicator if you were not that great when you were younger?
I think I just rebelled out of it, to be honest, when I was on my late teens. And I thought, this is not working. I don't know how to talk to people that confidently. And I always stretch myself. I think I started to live outside of my comfort zone. I took jobs as a sales representative while I was studying. I sold the most difficult thing you can think of. I probably sold it, like insurance, I don't know, saving plans, phones back in the day. We're talking maybe before the 2000s, on the late 90s. I sold furniture, I sold office equipment, and just because I wanted to expose myself to those things I was terrified of. So gradually, I became better by doing cold sales, by doing different things, and gradually, because I began to love it, to like it, and become a little bit better at it, I just wanted to study it. And it just grew from there. After a few years, it grew into a skill rather than something that I was terrified of.
Well, I love this saying that the quickest way to gain self-confidence is to do the thing that you are the most afraid of.
Absolutely.
So can your child, Nathan, inside of you imagine that you are here now doing a live webinar? Because the child in me is like, oh my God, what's wrong? Run, Laura, where are you? How did you get here?
I would have never dreamt of doing something like this. And I'd be just like, dude, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
Why are you exposing yourself that much in front of other people? No, I would have never imagined that. Now I give conferences in front of hundreds of people. And I'm not going to say I don't get nervous, because I do. Particularly the first couple of minutes, or I would say maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes on every talk I give, I'm very nervous. My heart is like beating like crazy. But now it's kind of more excitement than fear. Before it was all fear, and it was all through the talk. It was, don't get me wrong, it was It was horrendous, the first experience I had. But then you warm into it, and then you become more confident, and you become to forget who you are and just thinking about the value of what you're talking about. And that's a great place to be when you can focus on the message and on the people you're talking to.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also like this idea. I heard about it from an audiobook. I don't remember exactly from which one, but the point was that if you keep telling yourself that, oh my God, I'm so afraid of this situation, then your mind is expecting already like a very horrible situation. But if you reframe it inside your head and say, wow, I'm so excited. I can feel that my body is alive and I feel the adrenaline rushing and this is such an exciting opportunity, then you will already go into the situation with a different outlook. And I think the outcome will also be way different.
Absolutely. I think it is the best way to do things. What we tell ourselves is powerful for the good and for the bad. So if you tell yourself, oh, this is so scary, I'm terrible at this, you're right. And if you do say to yourself, I'm becoming so good at this, even if you are not yet at the point I want to be, you're also right. Your brain cannot distinguish. So it's just by having this constructive idea, this is not a problem, it's a challenge. It's something that's going to help me grow. And I'm becoming good at it. And every day that I make an effort, I become better.
Yeah, yeah. But I think it can be so funny at first when you start doing that because you feel like, oh, I'm so afraid or I'm not good at all. And then you start saying these things that may even feel to you like a lie, like, oh, I am very good at public speaking. But after a while, your brain starts to believe it. It's so weird because after a while, when you say it, you don't think anymore like, oh, that's like so weird. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I am great.
It's kind of like dancing in a way. Some people hate it and they say, I've got like a fixed hip and it just doesn't turn. I'm horrible at dancing. But everybody has hips. Everybody has some, even if it's like deeply buried sense of rhythm. We all have it somewhere. And it's when you force yourself to let go, to enjoy the experience, when you little by little become a little bit better, you get into some sort of flow and you have fun. And communication, I think, is a little bit like that. You have to feel that rhythm, you have to feel that and let go a little bit. And yeah, probably it is fake until you make it in a bit of a way. But also it's a lot of preparation and having a process that works for you, which is why I love this subject we're going to discuss, because there's always a process that you can follow that gives you that confidence, that extra boost that you need to just go and communicate and share so much that you probably have.
Exactly. That's what I also love about it, that it is all learnable. And I used to be so like self-conscious about the fact that I wasn't that amazing social butterfly who walked into every situation and then could make easily friends with everybody. But once you understand how to really read people or like what type of personality they are, how they would like to be approached and so on, it becomes way easier and it's not that bad anymore that you are not a social butterfly, because you can be other type of butterfly and still be very successful in your communication.
And very exciting and very cool in your own very way. And there's not just one way to communicate, as we're going to be talking about. There are many ways to communicate. So I would like to use the opportunity to welcome everybody again to our webinar today, Powerful Talks or Powerful Marketer Talks this week. My name is Nathan and I'm one of your co-hosts. Just in a nutshell, I'm an entrepreneur and a person that loves communication, loves marketing and loves sales. And I've been doing this for about 20 years now. And I'm very happy to host another Powerful Talks webinar to discuss inspiring ideas and how to share knowledge with other people around you so that we can all use this lockdown and this crisis time also as an opportunity to grow. The most important thing is for me, of course, that you remain safe, but also that you look after yourself and you look after your mental health, you keep it inspired and you keep it sane. So let's spread happiness, positivity, and inspiration. And thank you for choosing to spend this hour of your Friday, if you're watching live, or whatever day it is when you're watching the recording with us. It's going to be an exciting webinar, and this is something that we can promise. You're going to have fun.
I agree. Welcome, everybody. My name is Laura. I am also your co-host. I am a marketer from Estonia, but I am currently calling from Spain, from lockdown, the same as Nathan. So greetings to everybody in the lockdown. Don't worry, we will get through this. Things will pass and it will be okay. And I am also a part of the Powerful Marketers team. And on behalf of the whole team, first of all, I just want to say how thankful we are to everybody who is joining us right now and who have joined us over the past couple of webinars. We have been so happy truly to see more and more people joining, more and more people giving us feedback, sharing their thoughts, their ideas, and we really do listen and we really appreciate it. So please keep on sharing, comment under the YouTube video or in the Powerful Marketers community on Facebook. Just let us know what are your thoughts, what are you feeling, where are you joining us from, and so on. Because we really want to connect marketers from all over the world. That is what we are here to do. That is our passion. And we want to share value, knowledge, experiences, so that we can all grow together. And by choosing to be active, you can be sure that you help out so many other marketers like you. And remember, what you give out is what you get back. So it's like a boomerang of life. And as Nathan said, today we have a very exciting webinar. We will talk about communication. Marketing is by people and for people. So communication is in the center of it all. And I'm excited to share some things that have been truly game changers for me in communication. And I think we can just get started. So let's go, Nathan.
That's right. We're here to talk communication, and that is something that connects everybody. It doesn't matter where you come from or who you are, even now, because of this coronavirus, our jobs and daily lives have been disrupted so much. And you know that in our previous webinars, we've been discussing how marketers can help themselves this crisis by working on their mindset and their subconscious mind. And also we talked about how you can overcome the challenges in marketing in these crazy times that are changing so rapidly. And now is the time to talk about communication with different people, because no matter how great your mindset and how amazing your marketing skills are, it's very difficult to make your goals a reality if you're not able to communicate them powerfully to other people. So Laura, how do you feel about this? Do you think people are going to be the same, are going to communicate the same ways? Or do you think this whole coronavirus thing has changed the way they communicate and the way they are opening to the world?
That's a good one. I think that people are still the same. The coronavirus hasn't changed who we are at the core. We still have the same needs. Remember the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the thing that I have mentioned almost in every webinar, I think, but it is so true because it illustrates the fundamental needs that every person has, regardless of their age, sex, nationality, religion, and so on. But I do believe that every person perceives these needs a little bit differently. So what makes me feel safe may not be the one that makes you feel safe. And that is what we need to keep in mind. Another thing that is universal with or without the crisis is that we need people to verify that the way that we see ourselves is actually the way that we are. And it is understandable and justified. And this need has also remained the same. And while there are many universal things that apply to each person, there are also factors that make us very different from each other. You know, we all come from different backgrounds, from different countries. We have all had different experiences, different influences, different people in our lives. And as a result, we are all different individuals. And there are a great many things that affect each and every one of us. One for sure is aging and the life curve phase that we are going through. We will talk a little bit more about that later.
Yeah, some people are getting older.
Yeah, shocker.
Exactly.
Yep, can't help it. Of course, generations, they are a huge impact to the way that we are, the reality that we have grown up in. Social and cultural environment, education level, that plays a crucial role in the way that we are influenced by different kind of information and background noise. And of course, behavioral styles or personality types and our experience in communicating with these different behavioral styles.
That's so true. Our background influences us a lot, and I think we don't stop that often to think about it. We kind of falsely assume that everybody has the same perception, that they are going through exactly the same things as us, and that they think in the same way about it. And of course, that's possible. We all see life through a different lens, through a different perspective. And as you mentioned, there are some universal things that influence us all. And those things, if we take them into account, then we learn to communicate in a more individual level with any person. Those things that you mentioned, that like the life curve phase, what are you going through in every part of your life, the characteristics of different generations, and how you may behave in different ways because of who you are. And understanding these things, it benefits us in many ways. One is because we benefit personally when we notice some biases in our own thinking or the way other people think, what triggers behavior, what triggers actions. And this, of course, can be applied to marketing beautifully to what triggers purchasing behavior or what leads to for action. And then we can work on those things to improve, to be a bit more open-minded in the way we communicate to different individuals.
Yes, there are things that we cannot change about our past, but the good news is that there are things that we can choose to work on. And there's pretty much everything and anything that's possible when we decide to learn it. And when you know how to communicate with other people around you, you will never have to be afraid of any kind of situation. For example, afraid of going to a meeting with big and scary people, afraid of asking for feedback or receiving feedback and taking it as an insult to you, or asking questions at the office, saying no, or feeling bad about the way that somebody else communicates something to you because you don't understand why they would act in that way. And of course, the same applies to our personal life, our relationships with our friends, our loved ones, and they can really drive us mad sometimes. And question, like we are questioning, what are you thinking? Like, why would you say such a thing? Are you trying to ruin my life? Are you trying to insult me on purpose? Why don't you understand? This is important to me. And at times it may feel like we're talking about completely different things and there's no common ground. And if you learn more in depth about the differences we all have, you might actually be surprised how you really can understand others better, and you will know how to communicate in a way that does not bring any extra stress into the communication, because you can cater your communication style. Oh my God. Communication style. You can cater that to the person you're talking to. Yes.
I think it's also a good thing if we agree to what communication really is. We could look into different definitions, but one that I enjoy especially is the one that puts it as exchange of communication of information, when you are imparting or exchanging bits of information in different channels, speaking, writing, any channel where you are putting any information out there, that's part of your communication. Even when you don't speak, even when you show yourself, you're still communicating, which means that it's pretty much everything you do, pretty much everything you say, where others can hear, can read, can judge, can receive any feedback, even if it's not in words. Like this webinar, for example, this is another example of communication.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, that communication is not always in words only. It can very well be shown in your body language. And in Powerful Marketer program, or PMP as we call it, we actually work with communication literacy. And that term may be a bit surprising for you, but I think the easiest way to understand it is to compare it with financial literacy. And that gives the idea that you can really become an expert at something if you do it with thought and you work on your skills. So by our definition, communication literacy is the set of skills and knowledge that allows an individual to be able to communicate on any level necessary. And it also helps to relate to different people, despite their religion, age, or other background. And of course, it helps people to make informed and effective decisions using all their communicative resources.
And it's not a small thing. It's critical to becoming a powerful marketer, because you definitely need to fine-tune, to refine your communication literacy if you want to develop strategies that are going to work with your tactical planning. Whether it's inside your organization or it's outside of it, you always have to communicate. You have to sell stuff, you have to communicate that to your boss, to your colleagues, to employees, to business partners, to service providers, with your family, with your other half, with your friends. And whenever you communicate with different people, you always need to remember not to be always focused on evaluating, because it's not that cold that you're evaluating everything you do, but you need to understand and to relate to other people in a way that makes them feel that you are tailoring that communication to their individual needs. And that makes you, I think, a better communicator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the trickiest thing, not to evaluate, because I feel sometimes it's an automatic response. You can't help it. And you're like, oh, why would you say such a thing? But practice makes perfect. And yes, based on all the information that you have, you need to be able to make objective, up-to-date decisions. And in order to do that correctly, you need to know how to differentiate the important and the relevant trends and information from the noise. And of course, on top of that, you need to understand all the relevant legislation in order to stay on the right side of law and proper ethics within your marketing. Yeah, you have to understand all the parts of communication literacy before you can be a true professional, even the boring ones like legislation. But
so sexy. You say relevant legislation in communication. I'm sure everybody knows that bit.
It's very sexy, I promise you.
Of course it is. But if you want to improve and to get to the next level as a marketer, as a professional, it's about understanding what they expect to take away from the communication. What are their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their obstacles they're encountering, and everything that relates to the personal life and also the professional life, and how what you have to communicate impacts them in different ways. And today, we are not going to talk about like purely technical communication skills. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to talk about just effective communication tips, like how are you communicating with consistency, or how can you put out there a certain message inside or outside the company. Instead of that, we are going to talk about how you can do everything to make yourself understood to a deeper level, to establish a connection with your target audience. And you will see how well you can understand yourself, your own characteristics, your values, your preferences, your motives, and so many other traits that you have, because really communicating powerfully with others begins with understanding yourself.
Definitely. And what I love about communication is that this topic is not only reserved for marketers, it's actually very useful for every person on the planet, because we all need to communicate. So I believe that the principles and the theories that we are going to share will be very useful and very valuable for every listener. So let's get started. I would like to first talk about aging and the different phases that we go through. And for that, we have...
Whoever is aging. I'm not aging at all.
Of course, you're not aging. Nobody's aging, but still there is a theory called the life curve, which shows that there is aging, but of course you are not aging. It's fine. But yeah, I don't think that many of us have really thought about how our age actually influences our behavior and how different it can be depending on the life phase that we are in. And when I first saw this theory of life curve on PMP, I felt like my eyes had opened completely, because first of all, I hadn't heard about it before, never. And second of all, suddenly everything started to make so much sense. I understood my own feelings. I understood that I am not that special, but in a good way, in a way that that all the struggling and all the pain that you go through when you're a teenager, that, well, it's actually very common. It wasn't just me. So that was a reassuring thing. I also saw where my boss and colleagues are in their life curve phase, and it was way easier for me to understand why they would act a certain way when I realized that, okay, they are now being influenced by such things. And of course, I could apply it to my parents, my grandparents, and so on.
And that's where we talk about this aspect of the life curve.
Yes, I believe there is a wrong slide on the screen, Nathan.
Oh, how come? That's beautifully done. So what I'm
It
going to
is
do,
a beautiful slide, yeah.
yeah, it is beautiful, but that's not exactly the one we want. So I'm going to go to the right one right away, because that was about behavior styles, the one we just showed.
Yeah, we will get that to the very soon. But the life curve one is very exciting, and it's a beautiful slide. And I'm very excited for Nathan to pull it up any second. No pressure.
Now it's just playing up. So bear with me a second. In the
Under
meantime,
pressure.
let's discuss the shape. It's got a shape like a bell, one of these bows. What's the name of that one? Bows bell, that shows the different parts of our process, and that's exactly what we see on this life curve. Is part of the process that
Awesome.
we all go in different stages in our life. The first one happens. Well, basically, it's about support mechanisms. Is when you are in different parts of this curve, you need different things. And we all go through different changes, both on a physiological level, psychological level, and understanding exactly where your boss or people you're communicating, where they are in this curve, helps you to see how to position yourself in the way you speak to influence them better. And it applies how you talk to your team, to your target audience, and basically to everyone, both in your personal life and in your professional life.
Indeed, the life curve theory explains the movement of a person through various ages from birth to death in a fairly simple manner, but it is a very insightful theory nevertheless. And as you can see, it is a curve that represents our life. And why is it shaped like a curve, not a straight line? Well, great question, Laura. The answer is that, yeah, it is curved for a very simple reason. There are many parallels that can be drawn with the younger and older people. So as we age and we are children, we go through things. And when we're older again, we go through similar things. So people who are 14 years old are very similar to people who are 50 years old. People who are 7 years old are very similar to people who are 6 years old, and so on. That's why actually children and their grandparents can get along very well, because they understand each other very well. And of course, another thing is that life is cyclical, or it's like a cycle. And if you think about it, cycles are everywhere. Flowers bloom in the spring and wither in the autumn. Earth circles the sun. We have day and night, and so on. And even the economy has cycles. Everything just keeps on repeating itself over and over again.
And it's true that things are repeating, but even when they are repeating, they are still like in different phases. The first one you develop from age 1 through to 21, mostly, although guys develop in a different way than girls. Girls are much faster than we are, for whatever reason. And also the second phase, relative balance, between 21 and 40, things are pretty stable, you know, from different perspectives. And then when you turn 40, you enter into the decay phase. And I know it sounds awful. I'm 43 and there's nothing about me that is in decay, or I would like to think so, because it doesn't sound right, does it? But trust me,
Nope.
I'm here. It's a process. And in the world of psychology, is actually, of physiology rather, it means that before we have been something by nature, and that is gradually taken away from us.
Yeah, that is true. And actually, the phases 1 and 3, or the development and decay, are the ones where there are most changes happening to us. And those phases also have subphases. But the good news is that if you are at the age of 21 to 40, like me, then this is the phase of relative balance. And from the physiological and psychological sense, that means you are on top of your life. So life is great at the moment. The key here is to question if you are happy with your life choices so far, such as your career choice or your partner choice, and so on. If yes, then that's great. If not, if you feel worried about something, anxious, if you feel like you're not where you are supposed to be, then this is the cause for you to feel out of balance. And it is your job to restore this balance, to make the necessary changes in your life so that you can be happy with your choices and move on to the next phase.
And also very interesting is the development phase. So if you're thinking about what that entails, If you have kids, you know exactly what we're talking about. When you have children for different ages, any parent knows that how much a child can change in different ages. Physically, clothes that they were using 2 months ago, maybe they don't fit anymore. For me, it was very interesting to find out about the physiological and psychological developments and how interconnected they are. Example, a 1 to 7 year old child, they will develop their nervous system on those in this age, and that means that it's going to affect them, and it would be very difficult to for any child to control their emotions because it's developing all this nervous system. They're so hyper all the time. You have to repeat. You have to show great patience with them, and that is what really helps. Even if parents are going mental and we are crazy because we have to repeat things and the same story over and over again, 100 million times, that's what we have to do. That's how they learn, through repetition, through repeating information, also understanding those boundaries that we have to establish for them. And by the way, those things are equally important, not just 1 through 7, also when you turn 60 to 70. Because like what we mentioned earlier, life curve repeats itself in a way. So there are various similarities in what you have to do with a 60 to 70-year-old and what you have to do with a kid that is less than 7.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. And if you look at older children, 7 to 14, then the most intense physiological development is happening in the cardiovascular system. And of course, psychologically, it is a complete emotions world. And that is why the best way to support your teenager at home is to have a balance of work and rest time. And by work time, I mean school time at that age. That routine is very crucial. It will really help them to manage those emotions as well as the changes that their body is going through. And also the need to belong becomes very strong at that age. And the parents shouldn't feel offended when their child wants to spend time with their friends or wants to agree with their friends over what the parents are saying. It is just the way of life.
Absolutely. I think also it's not easy sometimes because there are different viewpoints. When it comes to raise kids, some people would say that you need to give them boundaries, as you were mentioning, balance, same times, nice routines. Some people ignore that, and that has an impact on how they communicate, how moody they are. And it's so interesting to analyze these developments because if you don't think in how this affects the way you communicate, you can create conflict where you don't have to have conflict. It's easy to get annoyed at a child or a teenager for doing something that we may think is silly, stupid. But then when we realize that it's caused by something that their body or their minds are going through, that gives us a better understanding of how we can support them, how we can communicate to them. And this applies to different phases in life. There are certain typical behaviors in different moments in your life for which there is a helpful antidote or cure in the form of a supportive communication.
Exactly. And if life curve is something that sounds very interesting to you, which I promise you it is very interesting, then you can learn more about it from our Powerful Marketer program, because we have a very exciting module there, module 4. And inside you will find a detailed overview of this truly insightful theory.
And I would say as exciting as understanding better in more depth the concept of the life curve is the generations. I think it's way overlooked because apart from considering your stage in life, also a factor at play is your generation. Depending on when you were born in history, you have been conditioned more or less according to that generation.
Yeah, people from different generations react differently to the same reality. And I feel like there has always been this clash between generations, you know, grandparents saying that children don't know anything and the youth is doomed, and it's also...
They never listen.
Yeah, they never listen. It's all pointless. But yeah, actually different generations have different perceptions and skill sets. And by better understanding those generation-related human behaviors, we can learn how to better influence our target audiences, our colleagues, our loved ones, and so on, because it will be way easier to meet their expectations of what they consider good way of communication.
And it has such a huge impact in companies. It's crazy. The way people work, the labor market, is affected so strongly by those differences. And they're a big part of differences on how people process the information, how people prefer to behave, how they buy products, how they buy ideas, how they buy services. And the way even you set up a campaign is going to be radically different depending on what age group you're targeting, what generation you're targeting. This is when you're designing loyalty programs, when you're designing employer marketing, targeted content to people from different generations.
Yeah, that is true. But I think with generations, what can get very confusing is all of those different names and the different years, because there are actually many theories of generations. It's not just the one and the only. And I think we can just go over the basics very quickly so that we're all on the same page. So Nathan, please.
Good point. Let's go there. We're going to be talking about these. Let's go through to the basics. The term generation was first used in 1928 by a guy called Carl Mannheim. But later, in 1991, Neil Howe and William Strauss, they came up with this great theory that has given origin to what we now consider the theory of generation. These guys, Howe and Strauss, they examined how different generations have been affected by relevant historic events. They discuss American history from the 15th century and 21st century, but it would apply to any history in any place. Civil wars, Great Depressions, crises of different types. And of course, COVID-19 is going to have a huge influence for current generations. So definitely scientists will start researching what is happening right now with this lockdown and this COVID-19 once it's over, to realize who and how have been most affected. And that is going to give us an explanation of why they will behave in certain ways in the future. And anyway, back to Howe and Strauss. Their idea was that every following generation has and carries one predominant trait that is repeated by a subsequent generation later on. So these traits that keep on repeating are idealistic, reactive, civic, and adaptive. Those are the main traits of these generations.
Yeah, and in 2008, Jane Hart and her team of researchers looked at generations from a different point of view, not from the point of view of historical events, but from the point of view of psychology. And there is an important difference here. And the point is that different generations receive information differently, and this influences their behavior. And since it is all based on psychology, I think it is more universal than the one based on American history. So that's why at Powerful Marketing Program, we are expanding on the findings of Jane Hart.
And that's so interesting. There's a few facts that I love about this. For example, the fact that right now, we have 5 different generations in the workplace. In any company, you can have the mature or the silent generation. Then you can have baby boomers, Generation X, Generation Y, or millennials, and Generation Z. And when you compare them, they have so different expectations from the same ideas, from the same stuff that we do every day at work. And older generations want probably more formal communication, more hierarchy, more vertical communication, and younger generations hate that. They think, hey, dude, we're equal. I'm like you. Why do you talk to me like that? Maybe you're my boss today, but tomorrow I might be in your chair.
Yeah, and of course we have another generation, that is Generation Alpha, and those are the kids that are under 10 years old today, and the world that they are growing up in is completely different from the world that even I grew up in, and even the drastic difference is even bigger with the generations before that. So I think, not saying any names, Nathan.
Okay, yeah.
I think that there has been too much digitalization, too many screens, and that has already showed some first influences. There hasn't been that much research yet because the generation is still developing, and we can only look at generations from the rear view mirror. So we can look at them once they have already past. And the ideas here are that the struggle is going to be with getting enough movement, enough fresh air, because we're all just stuck in the screens. So something to be mindful about if you have kids under 10.
Oh yeah. And the other aspect is, can you really consider generations when you're doing your marketing as a rule of thumb? Is it a trustworthy parameter to use? Why? Well, because maybe someone feels that it's not fair to generalize, to say, okay, if you were born between this year and that year, you're supposed to be like this. I'll give you an example. I was born in 1977, so I'm supposed to be at the end of one generation, and right before a new one. But in many extents, my behavioral traits are a little bit of a mixed bag between my previous generation, and I might be a little bit closer to the next one. So how do you feel? Do you think that we can use this as a parameter? Are we supposed to use it according to what generation people are in, or our target audience is in? Then we act in one way or another?
Well, there are always exceptions, but especially important is to consider that people who are born on the borders of generations, so that's like plus minus 5 years of the beginning or end of the generation, they may be influenced by either the one that they were born into, according to the year number, or the one that was before or followed. So it is fine if you are not exactly the way that you are supposed to be by your birth year. It's fine, you don't have to change.
We love you anyway.
Yeah, we love you anyway.
Where you are.
Yes, great. And another important aspect to remember here is that we cannot name an entire generation based on one sole trait. For example, generation of snowflakes or generation of digital children. It can be misleading because in every generation we have the ones who are extreme cases and the ones who are on the other end of the extreme cases, but the majority is always in the middle. So we call that polarization, and it started to take a bigger effect from generation Y, and it has continued from in generation Z. And it means that one generation is dividing into two contrasting groups or sets of opinions or belief. And the point is that while one generation may have certain extreme idiosyncrasies, which may earn them certain names like snowflakes or digital children, there's always going to be exceptions to those idiosyncrasies. And even the so-called digital children divide into very independent and very dependent. And some are perfectly able to manage and think for themselves. They are very successful, very good at everything that they do. And then, of course, on the other hand, we have people who require a lot of management and instruction. And that's just the way of life. We always have extremes, but we always have the big part of the middle.
Of course, some people will still be a pain in the neck. That does depend on the generation. But I believe that the majority can still be characterized in a certain way. Can't generalize always, but the majority could. For example, how different generations consider manners and formalities in communication. Also official positions and hierarchy. How do they view those positions in a company? Because for some people, like the silent generation, the baby boomers, that's crazy important. Of course, you have to respect your boss and your manager, and there's some mystery around that. But for generation Y and Z, they expect horizontal communication. They don't like that much to feel that somebody's exercising authority over them. They prefer, they feel more comfortable in this equal environment. And also the means of communications are going to be different. Face-to-face communication, super important for the silent generation. You would say something important in front of a person. You would call them, you would meet with them in person, and then you would deliver the news. And it would be unthinkable to do it otherwise. But then for baby boomers, they're fine with having presential meetings, but it's not that like they need it that much. They are fine just sending an email. They don't need that meeting. Or if you phone them, it's perfectly fine. And then you've got Generation X, which has a bit of an issue with picking out the phone because it's for them it's way easier to text. and is considered maybe a bit burdensome, and just calling clients is a bit harder in a way.
Sorry to cut in. I think you were we wanted to say Generation Y.
Oh yes,
Generation X are excellent with calling on the phone.
With phone. I think so.
Carry on.
Absolutely, I refer to Generation Y. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because that's, I think, the biggest gap in technology, or one of the most disruptive. From Generation Y onwards, digital is crazy. Like they're really good at it, but they are not so comfortable with formal communication, like face-to-face or phone, for example. That might be a bit weird for them. And then Generation Z, mobile phone, 24/7, less TV, less of any other channels. They permanently on the digital world, different social media channels, video chat, and so on. And the way they consume information, also very different. They need to consume super quick, and it has to be very visual and very easy to consume.
Yeah, I think we could speak hours about the different characteristics and influences in generations, but we don't have hours, and time is going by very fast. So the key takeaway here is that it is important to get acquainted with these different characteristics of different generations. And that way you will know what type of communication the other person prefers. And you can really make them feel more comfortable and susceptible to the information you want to share. And yet again, if you want to learn more about the generations, then Module 4 is the place for you at Powerful Marketer program. By the way, there is an awesome tool there called the Generations Identifier tool. And yeah, it is massive, and it compares all the different generations, and it helps you to analyze yourself as well as other people in your life. So that's especially helpful if you are trying to figure out what type of generation a person you are trying to talk to is.
I wholeheartedly agree, Laura.
Excellent.
That action item is absolutely massive and is so helpful. So if you can, please have a look at that. And as humans, of course, we go through different patches in our life according to age. We think differently, maybe because of the generation we were born into, but also because of the combination of influence that we have, we develop a different behavioral pattern. This is kind of like a unique footprint or fingerprint, I would say. Better. This is not equal to anybody else. And besides these principles, like over the generations, we have these personality traits that could outweigh other of the differences of the patterns.
Yeah, something that will really change the way you work with other people and succeed in your career or in your life in general is your ability to talk to others in a way that appeals to those individual personality type traits and preferences. And that's going to be truly a game changer. And I'm so excited to share those. So Nathan, go.
I love it. It's something that I'm very passionate about because all human beings, we need similar things on principle. But if we go back to this super useful Maslow's hierarchy of needs, BPS pyramid, and we think about those, what makes each person unique? Well, is what they believe they need to acquire or to meet those needs that they have. So we all need similar things, but we don't think that we need the same thing to have that need met. And it's so important to understand those things specifically. According to this guy, Tony Robbins, just new coach in town.
Yeah, never heard of him. Who is he?
Tony Robbins. Yeah,
yeah.
Guy just started
big fan
with this business coaching thing. This guy suggests, and you probably have heard this TED talk about the 6 fundamental basic needs of psychological elements that we all need. And he talks about 6: certainty, uncertainty, significance, love, growth, and sharing. And if we just go very quickly through them, certainty, everybody, your client, yourself, anybody you meet, we need certainty, we need comfort, we need safety. The second basic need is uncertainty, the need for variation, for something that breaks the monotony, for a bit of surprise and routine. But uncertainty in a good way, because surprises we don't like, we call them problems. That are not the ones that we like. And then the third basic need is significance, feeling important, feeling like you matter, feeling, acknowledged, appreciated. And we all need that. Some people need it a lot. If you think of Cristiano Ronaldo, this football player that needs to be perfect and super famous and super rich and everything. And then we've got love. We all need love to some extent. And if we don't get love, sometimes we settle for connection or for some sort of affection. They feel this growth, making progress, feeling that we're moving forward. We're not stuck in the same spot that we were a few months or a few years ago, that we are alive, that we are moving. And the sixth one is sharing, feeling that we are contributing to something bigger than just our daily lives and ourselves, and doing it for the right reasons. So different personalities, they would place more emphasis on some of these needs and less emphasis on some others. And understanding what priorities different people have on these needs are a really useful tool to know how we can be addictive for them. They would love to communicate with us because we somehow meet those needs through communication.
Yeah, this is truly mind-blowing stuff to learn. At least it has been for me, because different personalities have different needs, and therefore they prefer to communicate in different ways. And the DISC model, DISC, by the psychologist William Moulton Marston, shows the 4 basic personality types. And the word DISC is an acronym of the following words. And they describe the 4 main personality types. So number 1, dominance, number 2, influence, number 3, steadiness, and number C is going to be a mouthful, but I will try my best, conscientiousness. Did I do it?
It was almost perfect. It was beautiful.
Oh my God. Conscientiousness. I cannot say that word. I'm sorry. So Nathan, how can I know which behavioral type I am?
Well, you can know what behavioral type you are by writing a test, like doing one of these DISC assessments. Then you can complete a series of questions that give you a detailed report about your personality and behavior. And by the way, there is no personality that is wrong or right. You can get it wrong, this test. There's no way you can fail. It's not like an exam. And furthermore, it's extremely rare that one person is going to feel 100% with one of these 4 basic types. And that you would be probably a psycho or something, or a serial killer or something. So that means that usually we're a combination of all of those basic personality traits. And like we say at the beginning, we are a complex combination of different traits, some of them or all of them. We could be showing maybe one particular trait a bit more prevalent when we are in business or when we are at work. And then when we are at home, we might be the opposite type.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I think we can just take a quick look at each of those 4 personality types. So, yep, perfect. Go.
Let's do it. So number 1 is oriented to dominance and results. People that are like, crazy ass, people that want things quick, they are drawn to power, they like to control the situation, they are driven by money, they're always dressed for success. Usually you know what they are because they speak loudly, they speak very forcefully with authority, with gravitas, is what I like to say, and they make about 11% of the population.
They're confident risk takers, great negotiators, quick decision makers, and very hardworking. And that is why they're likely successful business people or attorneys or other positions where power is very important. And the struggle with them is that they cannot tolerate the chit chat or excuses or long personal stories. They just want the results, they want the answers, and they want them now. And they want to know what's in it for them. And if they can't understand that straight away, it can lead to them being impatient and even short-tempered. And the key takeaway for me has been not to include too many details when I'm talking to such personality types. Just give them 2 options they can choose from so that they will remain in control. And just quickly get to the bottom line and get going.
Absolutely, get to the what line? It's a bad joke. So you're
Great one.
Absolutely correct. It's very exciting to understand how to talk to them, what to expect from them, how to communicate from them, because they're super strong and super direct. You cannot go beating around the bush. And the next personality type is the one oriented to inspiration, to energy, are then oriented to communicate to others in this super inspiring way, and we call them the yellows. Cheerful people, usually if you enter into any room, the ones that are laughing the loudest, they are the yellow ones. Positive, inspirational, always super expressive, moving their hands a lot, speaking very loudly, super fast. They sharing everything that they can about their personal lives, and they're always dressed to impress. And they could be about 17% of the population on average.
Oh, yes, the rays of sunshine in our lives. They are always very fun people to have around. And they're always looking for excitement. So most likely they are willing to come with you and have fun and go to parties and so on. But they are big dreamers. They are very creative. They can see the big picture without getting stuck on details or like talking like this is not possible and so on. They see a picture, they're going to go for it. They're amazing networkers because they're just so open and so friendly, and they truly love making new connections. However, they can get bored easily, so there is no point in troubling them with endless details, facts, and long meetings. Their attention span is rather short, and they can overcommit easily because if you share something fun, then they will say, yes, absolutely, I want to do it. And they actually may not have time for that in the schedule. So just keep that in mind. And I would say that talking with these people is very easy, the easiest, because they like to control the conversation anyway, and you just need to let them speak. And if you get the chance to speak about yourself and your ideas, then just remember, make them big, make them fun, make them bold. Don't be shy, just go all in and share your greatest ideas, and they will love it.
They're so open, so easy to get along with. And as you say, keep them tight surveillance, so to speak, because if you give them a task, they're going to need a lot of follow-up. They're not really good with follow-up. And they will tell you the life story that we talk for England in that way. But moving on, next personality type according to the DISC profile is oriented to steadiness, reliability, relationships, and we call them the greens. They are down-to-earth people, very caring, very nurturing towards others. They're always trying to make peace with everyone. Are you okay? Is everything all right with you? Can I do anything for you? They usually address in a very comfortable way. They don't like to overdress in a way. And they make about 35% of the population. So that's a large chunk from your target audience.
Yeah, 1/3. And these people are true team players. They are loyal friends, very dependable, the best listeners. And their focus is always on the relationship, not on the money or what's in it for them. So they don't really like to talk about that part. They dislike aggressive, pushy salespeople and confrontation in general because they just want to maintain the good relationship. And my takeaway here has been to slow down the pace of your words, lower the volume when talking to them, not like with the previous two where you can go all loud and aggressive, not in a bad way aggressive. Anyway, talk about family, talk about friends, talk about their kids, give them opportunities to be involved in teams because they really flourish in that setting. They cannot be alone. And use this crisis as an opportunity for them to help you because they are truly great at handling crisis and they can manage the emotions and de-escalate all of those critical situations.
They are so community-based people or community-minded people. They always, I think if you want to build a team that is going to last for a long time and is going to work in a nice atmosphere, you need many of these guys if you can, because they trade with long and close relationships. But let's move on to our next one. The last personality in the DISC is the one oriented to process. I think I try to make a mix between conscientiousness and process. So
Yep.
we call them blues, not because they're sad, that's not the point. It's because they are analytical, they are conservative. They always offer consistent, reliable results. They're trustworthy, loyal, tenacious. I mean, I want blue people in my life as much as I can, any day. They need all the details though. So if you want them to do something, don't give a short explanation and push, because that doesn't work. So give them all the information and let them be. Give them plenty of space and time, because these people are like walking encyclopedias. They have a lot of knowledge. They dress in a way that reflects, that conservative and formal approach usually, and they're also about 37% of the population. So again, a big chunk of your target market.
Yeah, a huge chunk. And they are naturally closed and reserved. So it's hard for them to open up straight away. And if you are communicating with them, just give them time and support so that when they are ready, they can open up to you. They are very intelligent people. They're excellent organizers and they take responsibility seriously. If they promise, they will deliver for sure. However, they tend to be perfectionists and very critical towards themselves, especially. They tend to overanalyze and may even be too cautious because they can talk themselves out of doing something that is very risky. And when communicating with them, it is important to provide as many details and facts as possible. Come prepared always, show up early, show the graphs and the tables and all the data that you have. The more, the better, even more than you would like to show them, because they just want to see all of the data for themselves so that they can make the decision whether it's trustworthy or not. And they need time to decide on the commitments. So just make sure you're not pushy or aggressive and give them time to come back to you when they are ready.
Absolutely. Both personalities, the greens and the blues, if you push, you lose them. But particularly with the blues, you cannot sell an idea to them. They have to buy it. And I'm sure that as we were describing these four behaviors, these personality types, maybe some pictures came in your mind. And you could picture people with names, people that you know in your life, people that you listen to as you were hearing from these four personality types. Or maybe you yourself, you thought, actually, I'm a little bit like that, and I'm a lot like that personality. And that's okay, because as we said, we are a mix of all these behavioral styles. Usually we might have one of those traits that is a bit more predominant or more prevalent, but it also varies depending on situation. When we are under stress, we tend to go to the opposite in the spectrum. So that kind of tells us that we don't behave always the same way. And it helps us also to see that depending on who you have in front, you might actually adapt your behavior or your preferred behavior. And there are actually even clues that can give away which personality type is the person that you have in front of you. So when you are with a client, for example, by listening to them, you can guess estimate what is their preferred behavior. So you can prepare ahead. You can make a great first impression if you have that information.
Yeah, I would say that all the things that we have discussed today, the life curve, the generations, the personality types, they have been so eye-opening and helpful for me ever since I understood them. And once you really understand the essence of them and you get acquainted with all of the details and you get a full picture, then sooner or later, more rather sooner, you start noticing these patterns in people that you're communicating with. And I think it's so fascinating that you can walk to a room and then you can pinpoint like, okay, that is a red, that is a blue, that is going through most likely something like that. And in a way, it will become your superpower. And you can easily just adjust your communication style to better cater to that person who is in front of you. And they will be so happy to have had this conversation with you because it is exactly what they have expected and what they have needed.
And that really increases the success in your communication. The way you influence other people is something that is life-changing, as you mentioned. But we come to this point where we want to wrap up all these Powerful Marketer Talks webinar and see what could be our takeaways. What could we learn from this or be reminded of? So as marketers, as well as on a personal level, we all know that we need to adapt. We need to adapt our communication and our marketing to different perceptions of reality, depending on what point in the lives your target audience is, also which generation they belong to, and what are their personality types. So think, how capable would you say you are when it comes to addressing different generations, different life phases in your marketing, and also in your everyday interactions, because that's going to determine your success.
Yeah, and in marketing and the labor market generally, or just life generally, you need to be self-aware and take into consideration with who you interact with. And remember the 4 basic personality types. Red, which we discussed as the first type, their deepest need is for material, physical achievement, satisfaction, and fulfillment. They want to experience life to the fullest extent possible, so they are not afraid of taking risks. Yellow, the inspirational butterflies. Their deepest need is for variation, enjoyment, and creativity. They want to avoid boring situations, and they want to get as much excitement as possible. Greens, the ones who are oriented to relationships, their deepest need is for certainty and close relationships. And they want to avoid conflict at all costs. And they need to remain connected to others and enjoy harmony above everything else. And the last one we discussed were the blues, that they are the analytical type. And their deepest need is for certainty, for fairness, and for growth. And they want to have as much information to process as possible.
And it's so exciting that we have the chance in our marketing, in our daily routines, to include this knowledge. We have these 5 different generations working in the same places in the job market, and potentially in any of your target audiences at the same time. And of course, there are fewer from the veteran generations out there, but you still need to take them into account. You need to consider their age to consideration. And also, if you're working with them or doing business with them, you still have to think about how they prefer to be communicated to. And when developing marketing messages and any kind of social advertising, that is also going to be received according to the age and generation. So there's potentially a very thin line between getting excited, better said, or feeling disgusted. And you don't want to cross it, because then you're going to upset your target audience. And with social advertising, chances are that you either are going to hit the nail on the head or you're going to miss it altogether. So it's worth to invest a bit more time into how you think about it, how you bear in mind and you take into account those expectations and the general characteristics of different generations.
Every day, our collective trust in ads is declining because there is just so much noise. And I feel that personal and direct communication is truly a key here. And good communication may even compensate for a lack of expertise in other areas. For example, if you mess up, it's human. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you then disappear, then that's not okay. People just want to feel like they're treated humanely. They want to feel that you care. So if you own up to your mistakes and you have excellent communication skills, you will actually even make the relationship stronger through your mistake, because people will see that you will be there for them no matter what.
And this is why I think it's so useful from a professional perspective, from a marketer's perspective, to join our Powerful Marketer program. Because if you notice that you have a need for growth personally and professionally into how you communicate, that's something that really is going to make an impact on your marketing. Or maybe you know someone and you think, hey, this powerful training is going to be something that is right for them, is a great fit. And let me put it this way. Let me share something about my personal story in here. I began selling stuff. We're talking, I was sharing with you at the beginning of this webinar. I worked in sales for many years, and I always wondered, what is it that makes some people to respond to something that I thought it was a great compelling argument or a great presentation or a great product, and still some people with the same compelling argument, with the same evidence, they would not go for that. What triggers or what motivates purchase behavior? What makes people be total, how can I put this, silly people, and some others be great in front of the same reality? And I became very passionate about it. I made many mistakes. I said probably the wrong thing at the wrong time many times, and I learned from those things, hopefully. Oh, I said the right thing at the wrong time, and I also failed because of that. And gradually, with experience, with the as you might have experience as well, over time I got a little bit better. But then I thought there has to be a science behind this. And then I became interested in psychology, the DISC profiles, and other aspects that we have already included on the Powerful Marketers program. So again, this is something my 20-year-old me would have loved to have discovered. Even my 30-year-old would have loved to have this science behind human behavior and how you can communicate to inspire. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Nathan. It's very inspiring. And that, of course, got me thinking about my story. What am I going to share? And I would like to share that the story of my personal growth and personal development is actually the story of Powerful Marketer program. So I used to think that, okay, I'm here and I am like not good enough. I am not worthy of the great success yet, but I knew I wanted to be there one day, but I didn't know how to bridge that gap. So I figured that the best way of action would be for me to just sit and wait. And then if nothing happened, then just be mad at the world a bit, that why am I in this situation? Why everybody else is so successful and so happy? And then I would just keep on waiting and waiting. And of course, no miracle happened. Nobody came to save me. Nobody handed me my dream job or dream life overnight. That's when I realized, okay, it actually most likely starts with myself, with my own mindset, and how that mindset was holding me back. And that mindset didn't allow me to move further up because I was at my ceiling. I didn't believe that I could move up. And by understanding those limiting beliefs, you will soon start to see all of those opportunities in your life. And you will also know by feeding your brain with relevant information, and that you can grow your expertise. It's not that the way that you are today is the way that you're going to be for the rest of your life. You can always choose to learn more. You can always choose to implement new tools in your life. You can always choose to take on a new challenge and grow, because you never stop growing. And only by understanding that and by working on my mindset, on my knowledge, on my skills, on my marketing skills, especially on my communication skills, on my leadership, only then did I start to see this path of growth. And that's how I believe I have managed to breach that gap. And I think I am here now. Of course, now there is another one going up there, further up, because life never ends. It's always about growth. And Powerful Marketer program is a great reflection of that. Why are we doing this? Because we truly wish to help marketers any way that we can. And we know how helpful the content in the program can be, because all of the processes and tools in the Powerful Marketer program are the ones that were there for me when I needed to transform my life. And it has been very transformational for me. And I believe it can be so transformational for others as well. It is not just a one-time fix that you go through. It's not something that, okay, now I did it, I'm done, now I'm a better person. No, it is a lifestyle choice that you take. And it will really empower you for life if you choose to work on it.
And remember, if we may, let us tell you, this might not be for you. Is that okay? Do you feel comfortable?
Yep.
We tell you that this might not be for you, because Powerful Marketers program is not for everyone. Not everyone has that vision or that ambition, that hunger to overcome his own limits, or to come from growth from A to B in less time. Some people, they're not in a rush. They don't care if it takes them 20 years to learn these things. So it's okay. If it's not a good fit for you, it's fine. But if you feel you really want to bridge that gap faster and you want to grow faster, check out marketersprogram.com.
Yes, and oh, perfect. Nathan has put up the beautiful slide, and it illustrates the 5 modules in our Powerful Marketer program, and they are actually the 5 key result areas for any powerful marketer. And they are the following: mindset, which is what I also talked about previously. Then subconscious support system, which means feeding your brain with all the relevant information so that you can be quick and make great decisions on spot. Professionalism, your marketing tools. Moving on, communication literacy, all of the things that we discussed today. And last but not least, action and leadership, because as a marketer, you need to be a great leader as well. You need to be a great leader, whether you are a marketer or not, because everybody needs to lead their life. So it's important to take that responsibility. And the Powerful Marketer program is 5 modules, like I said, and in total, there is 893 minutes of audiovisual learning material. And that is roughly 14 hours of content, if I'm not mistaken. And a very important thing for us was that we didn't want this to be just this one-time movie that you watch and then you feel all powerful and then you never change anything ever again because it's gone, the inspiration goes away and so on. We wanted this to be the start of something really great for you. And that's why we have included 55 action items. There are different tools and templates and tests and downloads, all of the materials that you can implement in your life right now and start making real progress and start living this new life. And yeah, during this difficult time right now, my question would be, do you think it is worth for you to take a few minutes of your time to go and check this out and see how we can help you? Because we have a gift for you. The first module, the mindset module, is available for free right now for a limited time because we want to help people who are truly stressed at home right now because of the coronavirus. We want people to have the right tools to achieve a better mindset and start their success journey. So please, yeah, check that out. You have nothing to lose. It is free and you can only see if there is some benefit for you or not. And also, that is not all. You can apply for the free resources program as well. And that will help you personally and professionally and give you the taste of the type of content that we do share. So we promise you, whatever you choose, your choice will pay itself for 1,000 times.
Oh yeah, and remember, in hard times like now, this is the time when you have 2 choices. Do nothing with the info we just talked about, with these different aspects that can help you grow and achieve more. And just, you can wait for some miracle to happen, to have some epiphany, or to wait for the crisis to finish, or before the next crisis comes along. Or 2, you have another choice. You can choose to take that leap of faith. You can test yourself. You can own it. You can take responsibility and decide, no, I'm going to learn and I'm going to find the way out of this situation and to prove myself and to others that by being solution-oriented, I'm going to be able to come out of this crisis sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Nothing will change if you change nothing. No pain, no gain. You have to be willing to put in the work. And there is a saying that only 1% of people really make it and are super successful. But it's not luck that determines that 1%. It is actually your persistence and your determination to make that success happen for you. It is your willingness to not give up when all of those other 99% of people decided to not go for their dream and choose comfort instead. So work right now on your success. You will be the first to come out of the difficult challenges you're facing, and you're going to be so much stronger. Act today, and you will have an important advantage over those who decided to do nothing during this crisis.
Thank you very much, guys. See you on our next Powerful Talks.
Thank you. Have a happy weekend.